As U.S. Senator, you swear an oath to uphold the Constitution. What federal agencies do you believe are unconstitutional?
Department of Education, Department of Energy. Certainly, the way the IRS is being run right now I think is unconstitutional. In fact, you can make an argument for either components or the entire bureaucracy of most of what goes on in government right now being unconstitutional, other than the Department of Defense, just based on the federal government's charter to keep us all safe. So I'm not sure it's a matter of defining a short list. I think it's a matter of picking out the ones we should keep and recognizing the rest don't have a place in the Constitution.
And recently you came out against the Patriot Act. Has this always been your position?
Sure.
Because I remember you said you last time, I believe, the words were something like, you understood the idea of why we wanted it, but I don't remember if you exactly said you were against it. So.
Yeah, and it's a fair question. Let me clarify. I think maybe based on what I said last time. I think that immediately following 9/11, there was reason to believe that having a tool like the Patriot Act would allow us to collect information to better fight the war on terror. But all the provisions within the Patriot Act needed to have sunset timelines. That once we recognized that the avenue that we created to gather that information wasn't working, or it was infringing upon civil liberties, it had to end. Had to end. So I think for a very short period of time, while we were trying to figure out the enemy that we were fighting, it had some merit. However, it was for a very brief period of time. And then once we established a way to take on the terrorists, a way to aptly fight the war, it should have been eliminated.
We've been fighting 2 wars in the Middle East for a long time now. Many people in those countries now look at us as occupiers. Do you think we should still be fighting in Afghanistan? No one's ever won in Afghanistan throughout history.
Yeah.
And then the same question in Iraq.
Yeah, here's the thing. Is we need to decide whether or not we want to win in Afghanistan and Iraq. Right now we have no vision, no definition of what victory looks like. And therefore we have nothing to fight for. It was never clearly defined. And the thing about going into battle is you always have to have a clear mission of what you're expecting to achieve, what you're trying to achieve. And that mission has to be communicated down to the very lowest, least combat essential member of your unit. Has to be. Because if everybody else perishes in battle, that last soldier can still fight on to the objective. It's simple U.S. doctrine. We never had that going into Afghanistan. We didn't have that going into Iraq. Therefore, we shouldn't have gone. We are there now, though. And we either need to define victory and achieve it, or pull all of our troops out. Not on a timeline when the enemy can just expect us to leave and rearm and be ready for the day that we go, but a rapid redeployment back to the United States until we figure out how we're going to fight this war, if we're going to fight it abroad.
Do you think that it's really a front on, or the forefront, or the main front for the war on terror anymore?
The war on terror is such a globally splintered thing, Dan. It's
because there was that argument that
you bet.
We're fighting this is the
Al-Qaeda in Iraq,
war on Al-Qaeda in Iraq.
Right. No, I recognize that, and I understand that was terminology used for a long time. I would like to be able to say I know all the information on that. I don't know if any of us in the room do. Without the intel that comes into from the battlefield, I don't know if we can make an accurate description of the front is in Afghanistan, or it's along the Pakistani border, or it's in Mosul. We don't know. So I can't say for certain, but obviously, obviously it gets to the point where we need to recognize what that is. We need to recognize where we're fighting, why we're there, and whether or not we have the will to achieve victory. Sorry.
When you fight a war, you have to define the enemy, I assume, right? Who is your enemy?
Well, sure, yeah.
Okay. Once you define who your enemy is, then what is the purpose of military action against that enemy? What is your main objective?
To take away all of their fighting
To
capability.
destroy that enemy.
To
Right?
take away their fighting capability.
Okay. So who is the enemy that we're fighting?
We are fighting a disparate network of terrorists.
Okay, now
They're not defined by a nation. They have no legal, organization.
how do you fight that with direct military action?
I'm not sure.
So what do we do about the situation that we have? Because the challenge that we have, and I think what we're trying to struggle with here, is that we have this kind of nebulous definition of the war on terror.
Mm-hmm.
Terror is an action. It's not an entity. It's not a group of people.
Right.
Where do we go to fight this? And why is it that we have to continually lose our personal liberties? And Department of Homeland Security seems to be more interested in what happens in the United States with American citizens than this nebulous ghost of an enemy that we're...
I'm not sure why you assume we have to lose our personal liberties to do that.
Well, we are.
But I'm not sure why we have to.
Okay.
We shouldn't have to.
How do we fight this war?
Well, the war on terror, which is, like you said, a very nebulous, it's ill-defined, kind of amoebic type of group.
It's a very convenient kind of a thing to be able to do the things that they're doing.
I'm sorry.
Well, when you have an enemy that you can't define, that you can't find, that you can't go in and eliminate, and it carries on over and over and over, and you continually try to create this spirit of fear and all those other things, and we have to try to protect ourselves. I mean, it's basically turned into a license to, look at the Northcom and U.S. Fifth Army that's flying. I mean, these are...
Do you believe there are people in this world who want to kill Americans?
I think there have been forever. There are evil people everywhere.
Yep, there sure are. And do you think the evil should be confronted?
Yeah, I think it should be confronted.
Okay. Where should we confront it? After they kill people here or somewhere where we can find it?
Okay, well, I can give you a list of probably about 80 countries that are evil in their
Okay.
conception, so we should go fight every country that's evil.
I just ask you if we should fight them on their soil or if we should wait till they come here.
They had that
That
same
is a
problem
very,
in
very interesting
1776.
question, because, what about Myanmar? Should we go in and invade Myanmar?
If there is a clear and present danger that Americans are
But
going to
it's
lose, that Americans are going to lose their lives, perhaps.
How about North Korea? Are they
If there's a clear and present danger that Americans are
So
going
we
to
should go
lose.
attack
We are talking
Korea?
hypothetically here, when we don't have facts in front of us.
Well, see, my point is that would you support a war where there's no clear declaration of war from Congress?
How can you?
But we are. Where's the declaration
How
of
can you
war?
support a war that doesn't have a declaration of war? It's not a war then, right?
So then we shouldn't be there. There's no declaration of war.
We haven't had a declared war since World War II.
I understand. So if we are going to get serious about this and recognize what victory looks like, then we're going to do that.
But what is victory? Help us understand that.
I'm telling you, no one knows. America doesn't know right now.
What's the best alternative if we don't know?
What's the best alternative to?
What would be the best course of action if we don't know? Here's an interesting
You
thing.
you cannot declare war unless you can't commit troops to battle unless you know how they're going to win. Okay?
So then, in other words, we should probably consider pulling our soldiers back.
That's what I just said.
And
That's what I just said.
You support bringing them back from Afghanistan and Iraq?
Yeah, that's what I said. I said both.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I said now the time to withdraw.
Just get them home.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing that offsets the terror network more. Let's be very clear about this. There's nothing that puts the fear of Allah into them more than when we can go in and strike fast, strike hard, have our way with them, and pull out before they ever knew we were there. If that's how we need to fight, that's how we need to fight. But in order to keep Americans alive, we have to consider something like